Well, hello, everybody. Happy Monday and happy beginning of a beautiful new week. I hope you guys have all had a wonderful weekend. And yeah, look forward to what this amazing. Is it July already? Isn't that incredible? Okay, let's just have a look at the schedule before we bring Guy on. Enlarge for grandma's eyes. Okay, tonight, Guy Anderson, about to have him on talking about the Sumerian texts and how it relates to religion, right? So looking forward to this show with Guy. And then tomorrow night, Lynn Scott Hageman. You guys, you would have met her a couple of weeks back. I interviewed her for the first time, and also an amazing survivor. And she's going to be talking to us about what's happened in the dams and stuff like that. So join us for that tomorrow at the 4 o'clock, actually, which is, I think, 9 a.m. Eastern time, if I'm not mistaken, 4 o'clock Central Africa time. So join me for that. Of course, Wednesday, Double Trouble with Jesse, same time as we usually do. Join me on Thursday again for part 3 of the Mirror Universe series, understanding once, or now that you've understood your protective patterns, how does the universe, the world around you reflect that? And what are the signs? What are you seeing? What are you not seeing? So join me on Thursday for that. And then, of course, on Thursday evening, same time as today, Dennis Carroll and Jesse the Botar, we are talking about, Jesse's going to be doing a deep dive and decoding the women of the Vril. So Dennis and I have done 2 shows on that previously. So if you haven't caught those, please do so. And then, of course, Friday, drop in with Shanti, busy doing the pattern, South Africa from settlement to current crisis. This is part 2. Deep dive into that. We're going to be talking about the British and the colonizing, the Broederbond, all of those nasties, the VOC, BEIC that really started on this continent. So deep diving into that. And then, of course, Sunday Loop on Sunday, where you'll get to replay the older shows, or shows that have not been aired yet. So join me for that. Hello, everybody. Nice to see you here again. And Guy, ta-da. Welcome back.
Well, thank you for having me back.
Always wonderful to see you. How's it been going?
Yeah, good, thank you. It's very, very hot here at the moment. So the geoengineering is in full effect, and the grass is scorched. And we live on a sheep farm, so they're having some problems there because there's nothing for the sheep to graze on. So they're having to buy in more food than normal. It obviously adds to the costs of running the farm. It's happening everywhere here.
Yeah, it's the same. I mean, I grew up in a desert area, so I know droughts and the effect that has on livestock. And wow, it's crazy. And having to buy in feed, it costs a fortune. Yeah, wow. Well, I hope it resolves very soon, because that's terrible.
We need some rain. Unfortunately, though, the rain we get, is full of chemicals and metals, but we need to do something. We need something.
Yeah, absolutely. How is it in the UK at the moment, just in terms of the general climate, political climate, civil climate? Where's everyone at? What are you seeing?
Well, the football's been a big distraction, so I think most people have been preoccupied with that. And obviously, Starmer's gone. We've got another puppet to replace them. Ultimately, they're all being controlled from higher up above, by the World Economic Forum and the banks, the banking cartels, and so on. So it won't make any difference, really. They're just going to follow the Agenda 2030 guidelines anyway. But some of the public are happy to see Starmer go. Some already know that it makes no difference. It's just theatre, really. But the football's certainly been a distraction here, and people are still feeling the pinch. Cost of living's getting, beyond a joke now. We've got the sun shining. It's just a shame it isn't the sun I remember as a child. That bright golden ball in the sky has now been replaced by something that is bright white light and burns literally upon contact with it. But at least for the people out there that are struggling to heat their homes in colder times of the year, at least they've got some respite from that. But it can be a little bit too hot some evenings to sleep, so it's difficult to find a balance. We're not very good in this country at anything other than moderate weather. We're just not geared up for it. But yeah, other than that, everything's kind of the same old, really.
Wow. So much happening though, isn't there? Even though I guess it does seem like it's the same old, same old. There's really, I think, so much happening. Undercurrent, especially.
Yeah, it feels like we're waiting for something to happen, doesn't it? Something significant to take place. And I was just speaking to someone earlier on that said that in London, a lot of the parasites and their friends are building underground bunkers. They are preparing for what looks like it could be, a significant war or something. There are people out there that don't believe in nuclear weapons, but they're going underground for a reason, and apparently a lot of them already are. They're now living underground in bunkers. Yeah, a lot of them are now there. Yeah, so something big is on the horizon, and could it be that World War III? Seems to go in cycles, so we're perhaps due for something.
I was actually about to ask you, knowing what you know, what is your take on what's going on? Why are they building these? I mean, is it World War III on the horizon? There's certainly enough action around that, isn't there? There's a lot of very pissed off boys at the moment all across the globe shaking their fingers at each other and threatening.
Yeah, I agree. And obviously it looks like it will be the Middle East where this starts, and it's only going to, I do appreciate the fact they're all following a script, that they're playing this out. It's all theatre, but it does look like something is on the horizon that will start in the Middle East. Somebody somewhere will press a button, and that will be the beginning of it, the catalyst. So yeah, that's I suppose a fear that a lot of us have. We'll just have to wait and see what happens, but I think a lot of people are anticipating it.
You're right. I mean, it's bound to. Something has to shift. Something has to give. There is just so much tension all over the world. I mean, Africa is in South Africa, right? With all our immigration stuff going on here and the wars on the streets and being isolated by the rest of Africa right now. I mean, it's wild what's going on here as well. But it's all over the world. And that's why I say, with so much anger and so much frustration, there's got to be some type of explosion somewhere along the line.
Yeah, we are there, aren't we?
Yeah, I think we already are there. I think energetically, that great reset, if you want to call it that, right? It's already happened. I believe it's already happened. But, when we look at the energy of it, the physicality always takes a little bit longer, right? It's like, even when you're healing your body, you first feel it energetically, and then first your body might have to go through a detox before it heals itself, right? That's just the process of healing. You've got to eliminate that which has been making you ill to begin with. Proper healing anyway. And So, I think this is probably what's happening. A lot of stuff needs to be eliminated, and there's a whole process of realignment on a physical level. But at first, it just seems that that's what's happening. So
Yeah,
let's
it
see.
does. Yeah, I think we're in
Let's
for a
see.
bumpy ride, aren't we?
Yeah, well, I hope you all got your seatbelts on and your buckled up buttercups because, yeah, for sure. If we thought it was bumpy before, I definitely feel we're in for some tidal wave surfing now. I hope you've all been practicing your tidal wave surfing because that's what we're going to be doing right now.
Mm.
But yeah, just stay calm, and we just got to be aware, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just be aware of what's going on and be prepared. So, maybe now is the time to stock up. Just in case, stock up on things that have a long life.
Yeah,
Just in
absolutely.
case. Yeah, yeah, and it wouldn't hurt to.
Cereals.
Yeah, and a bit of extra fuel. When you fill up with fuel, then maybe take a can with you or two, and each time you fill up, get another can. I think it's not a bad idea to prepare. I'm not
Right.
saying be a doomsday prepper, but I think that maybe we do need to be slowly just buying a few extra items each time we go shopping and keep them somewhere somewhere safe and cool, just in case we have a food shortage. And of course there's always the potential as well of blackouts, which you experienced not that long ago. They were talking about that happening here, but it
Yeah, I've
didn't.
had
But
my 10 days of darkness. I've been through my
yeah.
great set. Very interesting. Sure.
Mm,
Most definitely. And it's not even, it's not even a conspiracy theory, this anymore. We're seeing it all over. But the difference is it's not happened all at once in the entire
mm,
world, right? It hasn't been one big, massive blackout. It's definitely been areas, right? And
mm,
lots of certain areas that have had major floods, major fires, major weather, sort of weather conditions. And I think, yes, although some of it I for sure think has been weaponizing weather, but I also think there's definitely that which nature has brought along and just kind
mm.
of clearing, cleansing,
Yes,
so
yes,
we've
yeah.
also got to realize, it works two ways, and we've just
Mm,
got to be, sitting, buckling up buttercup and humming your inner engines, Your
mm.
body's your spaceship. You got to just tune in and,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
let
absolutely
your,
right.
yeah, for sure. If you get the frequency for what you're meant to do and who you are meant to be, really, that's what it's about.
Mm.
Nothing's going to harm you. And remember, if it's your time, it's your time. Your soul will always return. So, anyway, I would love to. Very interested about the Sumerian text and the religious side of things, the hidden origins of religion, Sumerian connection. I'm really looking forward to what that's about. So, yeah, tell us a little bit about that, and how did you get into that as well?
It's something that's always fascinated me. But I suppose Zachariah Sitchin, and then more recently Billy Carson, they really are the people that have put this out there. Zachariah Sitchin, obviously, more so than anyone else. But I just find it interesting because, for a long time I've been curious about our origins. Where did we really come from? We've got, the creation, haven't we? The creation narrative. Um, and we've got Origin of Species by Charles Darwin, which for a very long time, I did believe that we evolved very, very slowly, but the leaps are too significant. And it also doesn't explain certain things either. I sometimes look at some of the creatures out there, like the duck-billed platypus or the panda, and wonder kind of what went wrong. Were these sort of failed experiments, caused through creating hybrids, or people playing God, on a scientific level?
Right.
And so the more I sort of thought about it, and the more I've looked at religion, for me, I think it's I think it's important that people believe in something. I think it's fundamentally important that we believe that there is something far greater than us that controls everything, that keeps everything together, that connects us. But at the same time, I believe that religion has really become weaponized and used against us. And also, if you look at a lot of the wars that have taken place, a lot of the hatred and division across the world, it often centers around but different belief systems. And
Right.
perhaps you could argue perhaps that that is a fundamental problem that we have right now. And then take the Vatican, the Roman Catholic Church, the incredible wealth that they have, and the whistleblowers that have exposed some of the more nefarious activities that go on there. That organization has the money and the power to be able to make the lives of the people that follow that particular church so much better than they are, and they don't. And for a very long time, we walk into one of these buildings, we're asked to hand over money, in some cases money that people can ill afford to give, and on the basis that if we give money, if we do what we're told, if we listen to this person talking to us, then they'll have a word with the man and they'll let us in when our time comes. And it's almost like a blackmail situation. You're going to do these things, you're going to give us money, or else, you're going to
Right.
burn in hell. And it just seems that something that's actually quite beautiful has been used to control us and make us live in fear to a certain extent. And if you look at the number of people that have been killed, the
To a
Roman Catholic
certain
Church.
extent, I think if there's nothing more, I think you've been very polite when you put it like that, because I think there's no worse trauma than spiritual trauma and using God and weaponizing that against children or human beings. But I mean, that indoctrination already starts from a very young age, right? Where they use God and decide what God should be, and indoctrinate kids with that. It's quite crazy, actually.
Yes, it is. And you're right, it starts from a very young age. I went to a Church of England school, I went to Sunday school. So it was drilled into me. And as I got into my teens, I realized that my dad was actually an atheist. And although he says things now, I think he believes in something greater, but he doesn't believe in religion itself, Christianity, for example. So, we were brought up, as I said, going to a Church of England school and following Christianity. But my dad's more of a scientific mind, and also well and truly down the rabbit hole. So, he introduced me to aliens and all sorts of different conspiracy theories at quite a young age. But for me, religion is something that I find fascinating because the stories within the Old Testament, for example, they're repeated throughout lots of different cultures, and they have been for a very long time. So, all of this comes from somewhere, and I think it's just been adapted.
I agree.
And the earliest, the earliest that we're aware of are, or the oldest surviving Sumerian texts, they date back as far back as 3400 BC. And a lot of the texts that were written afterwards, they date back literally, they're 1,000 years approximately more recent than that. But the Old Testament itself, that was written much later. Estimates between anything between 1200 and sort of around 165 BC. So, it's no coincidence that we've got these much older texts that are almost repeated. The same stories, the same series of events are then repeated in the Old Testament. But of course, the Sumerians are talking about beings that came from the sky. The Old Testament puts a different spin on that. But we can't put that down to coincidence, can we? If you've got something that some texts that have a gap between them of anything between 1,000 and 2,000 years. I mean, that's not a coincidence, is it? Surely. But yeah, so that's really what my interest, just finding the similarities between the two things and the huge distance in time between the writings.
I think, for me, it's spot on what you're saying. There are different ways of explaining or telling a story to get the same message across. And I think when you're dealing with different cultures, different languages, different, people from opposite sides of the globe, and all we have to do is look around us and we can see there are so many people on the planet who have different belief systems. Yet there's a fundamental belief in good and evil and an understanding of what that is. And all the religious texts and scriptures will always talk about the two sides, right? Especially, I mean, for me, I've not studied any of that, but like Hinduism, for example, because I studied yoga, right? You're always going to get, they would use like their gods. But it's like people, I think, misunderstand that so much because it's like, oh, Hinduism has got many gods. I'm going, no, it's not many gods. It's one God with many faces. Because they will use, for example, Ganesha. They will speak to Ganesha when they have a certain type of problem. And they'll speak to another one when there's a certain type of problem as well. You know what I'm saying? So it's not different gods. It's the understanding that human beings have different problems. We're all dealing with our struggles in a unique way. So when we speak to that which is greater than us, God, it's like that's one of God's faces, or God's personalities, if you will, that will come and help you with that.
Yeah.
So I think you're so right. When we look at how religion has been used to divide human beings, it's insane, actually. I mean, 300 years ago, witches were being burnt in Salem or wherever in the name of the Bible, right? And now, I mean, what's changed? The Bible, I don't think, has changed. Maybe man's understanding of things has started evolving somewhat, because I think that's what it's about. We need to evolve our mind and how we think as human beings. That's what evolution is about, right? It's not about apes becoming humans. It's about, evolving our consciousness, really, and understanding things differently and deeper. And through experience, we get to read between the lines. We get to see that life is not just one or two or even three-dimensional. There are so many different dimensions and so many nuances. And that's really what I think it's about. We just got to give each other space to believe whatever the heck we want to believe.
Yeah, and I think that that's important. I totally agree with you that, I don't want to change anybody's belief system or their views on anything. I just look at comparisons and I look for anomalies as well. And then I pick away and see if I can find patterns emerging. And I'm sort of sat with this huge jigsaw puzzle and I'm just trying to connect pieces together. But when if for anybody that believes fundamentally in what's written in the Old Testament, I think it's a worthwhile exercise to look at the Sumerian texts, because you can see there where it came from. But of course, they're not talking about a man with a beard up in the clouds in the heavens. They're talking about beings, advanced beings that came here. And the more I've looked at it, the more I've read about it, the more I lean towards that being the case. We were created as a slave race, in the image of the gods, but not quite as intelligent and without all of their capabilities. But we're a slave race now. It might not appear that way on the surface, but fundamentally we work in order for people that are higher up the food chain, so they don't have to. and they live in a life of luxury, and we are paying for that. And we're constantly, for most people, living in debt and trying to get through to the other side, living in the hope that one day we'll wake up and we won't owe anybody any money. And for most people, that's, you know, an impossible task.
It's so interesting because it's exactly that, you know, the slave species. You know, have you ever read Michael Tellinger's book, The Slave Species of God?
No,
Well,
no, but obviously I know who Michael Tellinger is and I know some of his work, but I've not read that
yeah.
book.
In there, he speaks about similar, you know, us being a slave species, but the 12 strands of DNA that we originally born with, that scientists have termed the other 10, because we have the double helix, right? Scientists have termed the other 10 junk DNA because they really don't know what it is. But and so I don't believe, you know, I think we are such an interesting species as human beings. I believe that we've been created to elevate, if that's the word, live through, evolve at all cost, because we have so much intelligence within us. But the 10 strands, it's like unplugged, it's like a unplugged hair dryer, right? It's like dangling there. And I mean, you can whack someone over the head with it or strangle someone, you know, it becomes a useless object that can either just hang there or becomes destructive until you plug it in. Vroom, vroom, awesome hairdo again, right? So it's like, as we remember who we are, as our spiritual awakening, as we reclaim that, right? As we remember we are created from God Most High, that DNA starts reconnecting. And suddenly we are all plugged in. And that's when I talk about, you know, the yogis speak about the nadis in the body. Like, people always talk about the 144,000. It's like the special chosen ones. I'm like, oh my God, please just stop. Because if you look at the right side of the body and the left side of the body, right? Because the right side is considered the masculine side and the left side considered the feminine. We have both, right? So there's 72,000 nadis or meridians, energy points, and 72,000 on each side. So as we understand, learn more, and that's why I do somatic work in the nervous system, because the nervous system starts repatterning itself. And then what happens is the nadis then meet in the middle, like the masculine and feminine consciousness. And it's got nothing to do with new age stuff. It's an understanding that what the masculine element and the feminine element is, and that we comprise of both, and how do we integrate. And when that happens, the nadis connect, and then boom, what happens? You have the 144,000 that's activated within you. So now your body is the spaceship, because you've understood, and it's like you're in the right place at the right time. You know, consciousness awakens. You know things, you sense things,
Yes.
you're aware of things, because those guys used us as a slave species by disconnecting our DNA. All they went is snip, snip. And then we're walking around with one strand of DNA, like trying to be all cool and everything, right? Now that we know what's happened, because they can never destroy what we are. They can try, they can tamper, they can connive, they can do all sorts of dodgy things. But when we remember that nothing like that is permanent anyway, and we actually chose to be part of this experiment, that's the biggest memory we've got to reclaim, is that we, as every human being sitting here today watching this, and even if you're not watching it, you chose to be part of this moment where we at now. And that means you would have chosen to have your DNA disconnected so that you could be dumbed down and walk around like a zombie and not know who you are, because that's what happens until you start remembering. And then it's like, oh my gosh. Boom, 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 boom. Ka-ching. Here I am again. And that's when you're out of the matrix. It's not something you fly out. It's a consciousness. It's an inner awareness. The living architecture in you starts moving again. Your soul starts moving. And that's what gets us out of it. So for me, I think, and that's why they would have used religion, right, in the way that they have. Because religion is the one thing that tears our spiritual father away from us and makes us fight about whose father is in charge.
Yes.
Who's the one that's got the right? My father's right. And no, my father. Where's the poor mother in all of this? Okay, let's not even talk about the mother that would have given birth to all of this. But the fathers are fighting in their paternal little tribal churches because now suddenly religion is the thing that divides us. But when we remember, that's exactly what the controllers have used to divide us. So it's also going to be the thing that brings us together, but not in a way that the New World Order wants to do, right? Or they're planning to do. It's an awareness that we reach within ourselves that we are one. We are one. Not one world order or one religion, one government. Not that. You see, that's the inversion of that. We are one. And as we move together as people in a unified way, they can't stop us. So it's that consciousness that we are one and we can't be divided. But we've got to reach that consciousness.
I agree. I agree. And they're doing everything they can to stop us uniting. That's our biggest strength. If we put aside our differences and just forgot for a moment about whether you believe we're on a spinning ball or a flat realm, and what religion you are, the color of your skin, you know, your likes, your dislikes, surely we can agree on that one thing, that, you know, it's time that we remove these people from treating us like this. Well, creatures. Yeah, parasites is what I refer to them as, because that's what they are. But yeah, and I think that's what needs to happen now. But religion, you know, is one of the best tools that they have to do that. And now we've got, you know, an immigration crisis, and that, of course, is orchestrated. That's just causing hatred. And so that, you know, that they are literally doing everything they can to make sure that whatever happens, if we look at, just for one moment like we're about to unite, they'll pull something else out of the hat to make sure that doesn't happen, and we just need to be able to see through it.
Exactly.
Yeah, but yeah, so you know, religion fascinates me. I find it incredible, and also at times, you know, I do wonder whether or not people that have a strong belief system, or at least on the surface appear to have one, have read the Bible fully, and perhaps some of the missing books, like Enoch, for example, Jubilee, Giants, Jesus, and so on. You know, that, and have they considered, you know, is this the original story? How many times has it been altered before what I've got in front of me was produced? You know, the King James Bible, for example. What happened? Because that was adapted slightly in favor of a king ruling, you know, a monarch, you know, positioned or almost kind of demanded to a certain extent by God, that they are there as God's representative, giving them some sort of like right, some sort of holy right to you know, control us and rule over us. And I think that ultimately we're all sovereign beings, and we are all created equally, and that nobody has authority over us. No one has the right to rule over us unless we give it to them. And I never consented to any of that. But it just seems that so many things have been inverted, and become tools really to control our lives, control our mindset and our emotions, and also there is financial implications as well. I just find it strange that the first thing you're asked to do these days, because I go into a lot of churches and cathedrals to look for clues, the first thing I'm greeted by is a donation box, to give money, and that pay contactless payments now. Used to just be dropping some coins in a tray, and then a donation box, and now it's contactless payments. And I think, well, haven't you got enough money? Just the property, the land that some of these religions own. I mean, there's an incredible amount of money there, and I just think that they could perhaps use some of their wealth to make the lives of the people that follow them so, not blindly, that's the wrong word, but wholeheartedly. They could make their lives better, couldn't they? They have the ability to do that. And just look at what they've done to people, children, and in convents, some of the girls and the indigenous people. Look at what they've done. In the name of what?
It's, I think, because they've been able to seduce the masses through religion, right? And they've been able to manipulate the minds of people through religion into making them believe that if you question anything, you are non-compliant and you're not questioning God. So they've done such a job on making humans believe that the Catholic Church, Vatican, right, is God, right? And your priest, whatever your preacher or your minister says is, wow, you don't ever question that, because that is a man of the cloth. And up until recently, there was no woman of the cloth. Remember that. Most religions were not allowing women to stand in the pulpit, were they? So all we have to do is just look at that, right? And then we can see. And, if you look at the Catholic Church, of course, they're the biggest, they're the haven for pedophiles. I mean, it's been known for the longest time. So any type of religion, organized religion, for me is a very dangerous thing. And that's what I've seen. I would like to see all organized religion scrapped, organized religion, because it's not a matter of the heart. That is a matter of the belly and the greed, because people are using these organizations as covers to do the most heinous things. Traffic kids, sacrifice kids under some of the Catholic churches, the Mormon church, the Seventh-day Adventist church. These are just people, survivors I've spoken to. What's the other one? The Mormon, the Catholic, the Seventh-day Adventist, and the Jehovah's Witnesses. Those are survivors I've spoken to from all of those churches. And they've all been abused in their churches, all of them. So please, let's not. And I mean, I've also dealt with people in the Middle East, right? And don't think that kind of stuff does not happen there. Absolutely does. Absolutely does. Absolutely does. Just in a lot more clandestine way. And of course, the Middle Eastern men are a lot more, they don't talk about this stuff. No. They're extremely proud men. So they will never talk about this kind of stuff. But, oh yeah. So wherever we go, we're seeing how people in positions of authority are abusing children in churches, mosques, the Buddhists as well don't even think that the Buddhists are innocent. They might look all sweet and beautiful, and some of them are. I mean, as a rule, these religions are all very beautiful, as a rule, when you look at them on their surface. But beneath it, it's terrible. I honestly think all of that stuff needs to be scrapped. I'm not sure how we're going to begin. I'm sure we'll figure it out very quickly on how to redo it. But organized religion must go.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. Yeah. Yeah, I do.
And isn't it interesting? They're forever shooting up schools and stuff like that. Thank you, Socks. Are you going to bed now? They're forever shooting up schools and stuff like that, right? Churches. I mean, I know how many times here in South Africa that churches have been shot up. They'll go into the churches and shoot people, just like Sunday morning. Open up with an AK-47. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, I agree.
However, anyway.
Yeah, so do you want me to dive back into the Sumerian text? Or yeah, because that's what I that's where I started to find that the similarities, that in Sumerian texts, humans are created, by the gods from clay mixed with divine blood, as a slave race, so we could carry out the work for the gods, plural. And in Genesis, Adam's formed from the dust of the earth. God breathes life into him, and they're both describing the same thing, that we were created, we were designed, we didn't evolve naturally. And I do not believe in Darwin's theory of evolution. I don't believe in the origin of species at all. And we've got the same thing, the Garden of Paradise in Sumerian mythology. It's referred to as Dilmun. Perfect fertile land. It's free of sickness, free of death. There's no suffering there. It's not identical to Eden, but it resembles very closely the Garden of Eden, an idyllic place associated with purity and abundance. So we've got the same thing. And in Sumerian text, the Sumerian figure Adapa, that's very closely resembles Adam. Adapa was created with extraordinary wisdom, but remained mortal after refusing the food of eternal life. And Adam, it's the same thing, loses access to immortality after what happened in the Garden of Eden. So, we see the same thing. The tree of life in Mesopotamian texts, that's described as the sacred tree of life, associated with divine knowledge. Genesis also features the tree of life in the Garden of Eden. You can see it everywhere, even the serpent.
Wouldn't it be falling from divine knowledge? Like, do you know what I mean? It's like Adam as well, like having a divine knowledge and then, I don't know, falling with it, but like fallen.
Yes.
Made matter almost. So I don't know. It's interesting. I'm just thinking, because to me, I always think about these things. It's interesting.
Yeah, I do that as well.
Had to become matter, and how we are living in material form that divine knowledge, and which direction we can take it, actually.
Well, that's where, like in Mesopotamian mythology, the serpent usually represents knowledge, or is connected to wisdom, but also, immortality as well. So, and that's represented in one story by a serpent stealing a plant that gives eternal life to Gilgamesh. But obviously, as we know, in Genesis, the serpent plays quite an important role, tempting Eve in tempting Eve, and becomes even stronger with the relationship to humanity's loss of paradise as a direct result of that. So the loss of immortality. And yeah, we've got the story of the Great Flood that appears as well. That appears in the Epic of Gilgamesh. The gods decide to flood the world because you know we've disappointed the gods, and this righteous man is instructed to build this boat, a huge boat, and it's an identical story to Noah constructing the ark. So you know we see it all the same, even sending out the birds at the end. You know that Utnapishtism, his name is up to, I can never pronounce it. Utna Pishtim, up to oh, get my words out. Utnapishtim, Utnapishtim. He
Utnapishtim.
releases a dove, releases a swallow and then a raven to see if there's land there. Noah sends out a raven followed by a dove. One comes back with an olive leaf. You know, it's the same story over and over again. And I just find it interesting that if you're going to strongly adhere to the teachings within the Old Testament, that it is worth considering looking at the Sumerian text, because this is much older. And like I said, that they're not talking about a God in the way in which we've been told, that of this divine being living up in the heavens. They are talking about beings, plural, that were advanced and came here and made us as a slave race. Well,
Yeah.
that throws a completely different picture, doesn't it? It's completely different to what we've been told. We think that we are this perfect creation, you know, made by God himself. Obviously, it's always referred to, as you said earlier on,
And
it's always referred to as a male figure. But then to find out actually we were created to be slaves for some beings that just happened to be more advanced than us and had the technology to do all this. And then one day decide that they've had enough of us, so wipe us all out, which appears to be something that they've got a, you know, or people that believe that they are doing their work, or perhaps are carrying some divine bloodline from these ancient beings. They keep doing it, don't they? They keep doing, you know, resetting us. They keep wiping us out, and they're
it's like
obviously doing it again now.
it's like what they want to do now. You know, also like, oh, you've been so naughty, you humans. You've just
Yeah.
like spoilt the whole planet. You know, we're just gonna have to inject you now so that you can know how to behave yourselves, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
that's absolutely right. Yeah, we'll
you know,
crank up the 5G or the 6G if you don't do what you're
yeah,
told.
we'll
Yeah,
just
yeah,
inject you into compliance. We'll jab you into compliance,
yeah,
right? But I think
yeah,
you know, I so agree with you on that, you know, but I also think that it's kind of like we're climbing our way out of hell. In other words, hell being the
yes.
matrix that we've been caught in. And because we have everything we need within us, we
Mm,
really do. And that spark of divine light, because I do believe, even though, yes, we might have been created from all sorts of dodgy grandfathers and grandmothers' DNA, right? Whatever creatures of the night they were, or they, I still believe that God Most High would still have the divine hand over that, and that our soul still ultimately belongs to our creator, because there is only one creator, and that creator would have created both. I mean, you can't argue God created Lucifer. Boom, there you have it. And just like Jesus knew
mm.
that Judas was going to betray him, do you not think God didn't know Lucifer was going to betray him as well? Lucifer serves a purpose, but that's a story for another day, right? For
Yeah,
me, when I can overcome those temptations that, or the deceptions, and I can discern between truth and deception, that's when Lucifer, or hell, if you want to call it that, no longer has any hold over me. And that's when you're out of the matrix, when you can discern between truth and the lie, because God is truth, the devil is the lie, if you want to look at it like that, right? So what do you align with? You might not think that you're aligning with a lie, but everything in your life might tell you that. You might have blind spots that you don't realize, but that's all to do with our own inner spiritual work. Because if you don't do that work, you're never going to know what I'm talking about. You're always going to be being hit on the head by a curveball and wonder why the hell you're always getting hit on the head with a curveball. Maybe you should turn in that direction and start seeing
Yes.
what you're not seeing, right? Most of us
Yeah.
don't like to do that.
No, you're absolutely right. Yeah. And we often don't learn, do we? We repeatedly make the same mistakes. And I think, it's all right to make mistakes. I make mistakes all the time. I get things wrong. Um, but I think that's perhaps part of the journey, isn't it? And that's how we
Totally.
learn. But I think if you can keep making the same mistake, then clearly you're not learning. And maybe when your time comes, you get sent back to have another go and see if you can get it right next
Exactly.
time.
Try again, Chantal. Try again.
If at first you don't succeed.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
but the other thing that's interesting in Sumerian texts is that they produced a collection of sort of sayings, wisdom, I suppose, moral advice, instructions for righteous living, and that's mirrored almost identically in books such as Proverbs and Ecclesiastes. It performs a very similar role and function, so to speak. And I just find it, very, very interesting that we have these organized religions that are telling us a story as if it's their own, that's taken from
Right.
something that's far older and talking about a completely different God, and not gods at all, just godlike in comparison to us. But
Right.
I ultimately think that whatever religion you follow, and whether you believe in religion or not, that we all have some sort of connection to a source, to something far higher than us. Um,
Totally.
and people sometimes, I've had people mock me for this, but I do go outside every day and I talk to the sun.
I agree.
Um, and I thank it, and I say hello to people that I've lost, and ask for help when I need it, and ask for a sign. And some people would say, well, that's crazy. Some people will say, well, you're actually talking to yourself. It's yourself that you're talking to. But I don't know what it is, but I have seen things happen as a direct result. I've
Absolutely.
I've asked for guidance on something or some help, and I've received that within moments. Exactly what I was looking for.
Yeah.
Now, and I don't believe in coincidence, but so I think that religion is perhaps something that we should maybe practice alone, that we shouldn't force upon other people. A lot of times that I've had these similar conversations on channels over the years. Um, if anyone's going to attack me or disagree with me, I'll often see a verse from the Bible put in there that I need to take Jesus into my life and so on. And I'm thinking, well, you're doing exactly what Jesus said not to do. If you followed the Bible, Jesus didn't force his opinions upon anyone. He said what he had to say and walked away. He didn't try and push it. And so often I wonder if it just makes someone feel that they are deeply religious, or that they have this connection to God or Jesus, by just regurgitating things at times. Um, but
Right.
but we can all say things, we can all learn verses, we can all copy and paste something from an online Bible, but it doesn't necessarily mean we understand the true meaning behind
Exactly.
it. So I just think it's something, and I don't agree with people knocking on my door and asking me if I found God, or stopping me in the street, which happens quite a bit here. I think it's something that you keep to yourself. Your religious beliefs. I'm not saying keep them secret, but I just don't think that they should be forced upon other people. And I
Right.
also don't believe that you should go somewhere and have to hand over money or have someone stand above you in a pulpit and talk down at you as if you are the the congregation, the flock, and they are the shepherd. Well, this is an analogy, or I suppose, of symbolic representation of sheep, herding sheep.
Exactly. Wow.
And what do we call people that are asleep? We call a large group of
Sheep.
people that yeah, and I don't think that that's a coincidence. So yes, I think that they've taken something that has a really good moral structure to it, and also tells us, you know, perhaps a story of how we got here, how we were made, and a series of events that have brought us to where we are now. And it's been altered in a way in which it can be used as a method of control, but also one of instilling fear and generating incredible wealth and power, and then forcing it upon people and taking away their traditions and making them change their religion and belief system, which they've done. Missionaries have been doing that for a very long time. And I don't think anybody has the right to decide what religion someone follows. And I don't think at the same time that it should be forced upon us either. You shouldn't ram it down people's throats. It's something for you. And I'm sure that Jesus said that praying was something you did in solitude, that you didn't go somewhere and let someone else tell you how to do it or do it for you or with you, that it's something you did on your own. But here
Right.
we are.
I think that's amazing, actually, and I agree with that, because I think it's wonderful to have people who have walked amazing paths before us and to listen to what they've done right and succeeded in or done well in. And if that resonates with you, try it, but it should always be your decision. And I agree 100%. And it is possible, it's like parents seem so terrified that if they don't ram religion down their kids' throats, that their kids are forever going to be damned to hell. That's not true, man. I was a child, and I say this a lot, and this has been my greatest gift that my parents gave me, is that I was never forced to be religious, ever. Thank God my father was like, no, you don't. I'm not forcing my kids to go to church. You've got to be completely crazy. If they want to go, that's fine. And we lived on the farm, so we didn't go to Sunday school. We were only too happy to be on the farm. And then when we had to go to school on a Monday morning, that was like enough for us already. We still didn't want to go to Sunday school as well. But nature was our church, if you want to look at it like that. We were taught respect, we were taught love, we were taught manners, we were taught etiquette, we were taught, and even let me tell you that I was born in apartheid South Africa. If any of us dared to be cheeky or backchat or disrespect any of our staff, that was an ass whipping. That was an ass whipping. So, and you get taught like animals, nature, to be kind. I don't know, like basic. We were never ever allowed to be mocking religion or anything. So there was no, even though we weren't religious per se, we were never allowed to mock anything like that. But it was like, I think for me, that has been the thing that has given me the most balance in my life, that I was allowed to choose. I had parents who had strong values. They knew how they wanted to raise their kids. They always stuck together in their decision making, that's for sure. They never, if the one said this, the other one agreed. And we were brought up with good values. I had 3 older sisters who certainly looked after me when I was first started dating boys and going to parties and things. They were like hawks over me, which I look back now, I'm super grateful. But I think, when you have a community like that, it's so important. This is what I say. When you have a community of like-minded people and you value the same things in life, you can always grow on that. It doesn't have to be religious. You see, we've made religious the be-all and end-all. There's such a beautiful connection to God the divine, and in so many different ways you can connect with God the divine. You don't need, as you say, someone standing from a pulpit telling you how you're going to be punished if you do this or don't do that, right? That is dictatorship.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, I think it's interesting times indeed.
Mm.
So we need to learn to follow our own
Yes.
inner light. That's the whole
Yes.
thing. Is to
Yes, I
decide
agree.
to save yourself, resurrect
That's
the
it.
light of God within you. That's the resurrection, the light of God within you. When you remember who you are, boom,
Mm.
everything
Stop
wakes
waiting
up.
for someone. Yeah, and stop waiting for someone to come and save you.
Not going
Save
to happen.
yourself. Yeah, save yourself.
Exactly.
And if there is someone out there watching over us, I think they might appreciate it if at least we look like we were trying, rather than just waiting for someone to come along and make it better. You know?
Exactly. So I
Mm.
forgot to, could you just try? Okay, I'm here. Okay, give me your hand. No, not like that, like this. Can you just stretch a little bit, please?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. You know, the light is within, the knowledge is within. It's in your soul, and you've got to, the work is for you to find that. And when you find that, it's like boom, the resurrection. Like the mind,
think
everything
so.
opens up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I
Yeah,
know
I
you've
think
got
so.
to go. I know you've got to go. So I want to say thank you so much again, Guy, and I look forward to having you back in a couple of weeks again. Is there anything you want to just wrap up with, and where can everybody find you?
Well, thank you for having me back on. And no, I think that I said perhaps the most important message I had, and that was that we need to unite, because that's our biggest strength. And so many things have been placed in our way. So there are so many hurdles and reasons to break us into little groups and hate each other for no real reason. Ultimately, just things that have been used as propaganda and machines really to break us, to separate us, and put us into small groups. So I think now, perhaps more importantly than ever, unity is our biggest asset. And if people are interested in reading any of my books or my blogs, then my website, which is under my name, the Tartarian Empire.co.uk, and from there, on that website, on the homepage, there are links to my social media. So if they want to follow me on Facebook or YouTube, whatever, then they can find me there.
Wonderful. Thank you, Guy.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for having me back. And I look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Indeed. We will have you back in a couple of weeks again. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I really enjoy hanging out with you guys and always having these types of conversations where we can dig a little deeper into what we normally hear and see out there. So I always appreciate amazing guests like you guys. Thank you, guys, and thank you all. And yeah, I'll see you tomorrow with Lynn Hageman at 4 p.m. Central Africa time, which I think is 9 or 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I don't know, guys. All right. Bye. Nice. I can't even switch this thing off. In a hurry to leave, but I can't. If this broke something open, if you recognized yourself in the testimony, if your body responded before your mind understood, the next step isn't more information. It's pattern work. Decode what your nervous system built to survive. Dismantle the story that keeps it running. reorganize through the body and choose, actually choose from the person you're becoming, not from the pattern that formed when you were too small to choose. That's Solutions, link below. The body is the record. Let's listen.